Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. I hope you'll come back often and tell your friends about it so that they can join us too. Before we start the show, I'd like to introduce Father Ron Walters with the show's prayer. Father Walters?
Almighty God, just as our models imitate the beauty of your creation, may we imitate your kindness and generosity to us in our relationship with others. Bless us now and always. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father. We appreciate everything that you do for our show. Now, Phil, if we could run Brennan's model railroading video, who is the sponsor of this show.
For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products for the O-scale market. Our flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. Its prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, we've developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Additionally, we offer craftsman kits that anyone can build with complete photographically illustrated instructions that assume you've never done this before. The Sonky Wanky Coffee Company is the latest and the fourth kit to be added to our ongoing and highly popular limited edition Ellison Tribute series. These kits take Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level with Dennis spin. The idea being that if Frank were alive today, this is how we would build these models using modern methods and materials. Use the QR code to visit our website.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for being the sponsor for our show. We really do appreciate it. I've got two sad messages to tell you about tonight. Number one is the owner of National Capital Trains, Bernie Chrysler, is going in the hospital tomorrow for some surgery. And we certainly want to wish him the best, and all of our prayers are with him. Also, Pat Rivard's wife, Mary, was in the hospital today for most of the day, getting a hernia dealt with. And while they were doing that, they had to remove a tumor from her kidney. And they don't have the test results back yet. They'll get those, I think, Friday. So we certainly want to wish Mary and Pat speedy recovery and all the best wishes that everything comes out very, very positive for both Bernie and Mary and Pat. And if we could maybe just take a brief moment of silence as a way of trying to show our support for both of those people. Thank you so much. Now I want to introduce Bob Davidson to talk about our scholarship program. Mr. Davidson, welcome.
Well, thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Just to try to catch everybody up, it's been a couple of weeks since we've discussed the scholarship. As hopefully everyone knows, this coming year, with a deadline of July 1st, we are looking for applicants so that we can award 3 separate $2,000 scholarships. These scholarships are available to high school seniors or currently enrolled college or technical school students And one way that everybody can really help us out is to spread the word about this, that the application period is open now. It opened January 1st. We've already received several applications, and we're hoping to get a lot more. So please, at your next group meeting, or just working on your layout, or if you just happen to be around the high school or something like that, please spread the word. Let people know that there is a scholarship specifically geared towards young model railroaders. This is the future of our hobby, and this is a way that we can really help out and help to make sure that it'll still be here in years to come. I'm going to put my email addresses in the chat. And if somebody could also put them up on the YouTube chat, that would be great. Just get in touch. I'd love to send you a flyer that describes the program, gives a QR code so you can link to the website so people can get to the application. Obviously, we are still welcoming and soliciting donations for the scholarship. Frankly, there's been about 40 people and a half a dozen businesses that have helped us out. Obviously, we are incredibly grateful to all those people. We made the big announcement last month about the PCR and the Pacific Coast region sponsoring their own, a scholarship. But please consider, if you haven't given, haven't made a donation, please think about it. We are now raising funds, looking forward to the next year's granting of scholarships. We hope to grant at least the 3 that we're granting this year, if not more. We'd love to do more. This is just a great way to help support our hobby. As always, any donation that you do make is fully tax deductible. We are a nonprofit registered with the IRS. You'll get a receipt. You can claim us on your taxes, and it's just a great way to give back to the hobby that means so much to all of us. We also have, which I'll be showing next time, we have the banners out there. We had banners in Springfield for the Amherst show. We've had banners down in Timonium for the 2 shows so far, and there'll be another one in April, I believe. And thanks to Greg and to Bernie for helping us out at those shows. From what I hear, we've distributed a lot of flyers, and hopefully, again, we're getting the word out. But if you have a show or just have a meeting or your annual dinner of your club or whatever, get in touch. We just added 2 more banners to our inventory. We have some table. Oh, thank you, Phil. Appreciate it. These are the new banners that we have. These are tabletop banners. So you don't have to have a big table or anything like that. They'll just sit on top of it. This is in our showroom. My company is happy to donate these, and we'll actually be getting another set of these in another week or so. So again, even if it's just down at the firehouse that there's a swap meet or something like that, let me know. I like to say my email address will be in the chat. Happy to send you one of these with a return postage so you can get it back to us or get it to its next destination. And I'm happy to send you flyers or just a layout for the flyers so you can run them off yourselves. But let's not slack off on this. This is when we need to keep this going so that we get into next year stronger than ever. So thank you, Jim. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. It's near and dear to all of our hearts.
Well, I appreciate so much you being involved in this. And by the way, some people may not know this. Bob talks about he has a company. Well, the company's name is Exhibits and More. And he does an awful lot of exhibits for an awful lot of companies around that you'll see at most major shows around the country. So I can't thank you enough for providing your expertise to help us figure out how to try to get our message out, Bob. It certainly has been a real asset for us.
Well, you're much appreciated. Like I say, it gives back more than a charity is right when you feel good when you're supporting it. So, and we all feel real good about supporting this.
Absolutely. And it's like we always say, Bob, when we get together, send money.
Send them
All
all.
right. So now that we've gotten through give money part of the show tonight, I do want to mention that our publication observations will be emailed to everybody as of tomorrow. Jamie didn't want to get everybody confused with sending it out today with the regular notice for the login for the shows, but you will get your copy tomorrow. I have posted it on the new group that we set up. And if you'll go to Facebook groups and then go to New Tracks Modeling, you can pick up a notice that I posted there, including the login link to get the newsletter right off of that site. So you can get it anytime you want it to tonight if you want. But it's a beautiful job, and we thank Martin Breckbiel so much for all of the work that he put into it, and everybody else that made contributions to it to make it as great as I think it is. So thank you so much, Martin. So now let me turn to Chris Course to talk about the My Bill coming up on February the 21st. Chris, welcome.
Thanks, Jim. This month we're going to have a challenge for the My Build. The February challenge will be oddities. Show us the weird things that you've got. Everybody's got a little stroke of humor somewhere on their layout, or maybe you haven't quite gotten that far yet. But we've all got things that we've been at least thinking about, and maybe some of us have built for placement or something at some point. So please show us your oddities, aliens, UFOs, your steampunk, jackalopes, non-prototypical trains, depressed center flat cars with weird things on them, those sorts of things. Please share those. I know this is going to be I've already seen several entries for it, and I think one of the things we were talking about last week is having a prize. And I think what we're going to do is, because I've only got one of them, we're going to have a prize for the weirdest entry. Once we go through all of them, then we'll talk about it and discuss it amongst hopefully the people that are online. And I've got a small kit that I'll send to whoever wins that. So that date for that is February 21st. So please try to have your entries to me by the 18th of February. That way I can put them together in a slideshow and hopefully give them, serve them some justice with the slideshow. Excuse me. Also, while I was at Amherst, I forgot to mention this last week. I have 2 tickets for the Rocky Mountain Train Show, April 6th and 7th. That is in Denver, Colorado. I can give them away. So if anybody's interested in them, please let me know, and I'll get them in the mail to you. So anyway, those are the things I wanted to talk about. Like I said, we're going to have a prize for the weirdest entry in the oddities. So please send those to me, railrunner130@hotmail.com, and we'll get you to come and talk about them. The March challenge, or the March show, will be a regular free for all. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jim.
Thanks so much. We really appreciate it, Chris. And I'm so happy that we seem to be getting a lot more people participating. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah,
So,
we've got a bunch of entries already. So I think people are really going to get into this one.
All right. Well, that said, I think that's the announcements for tonight. So let's start the show. We were going to have David Schultz here as a regular monthly presentation for O-scale modeling, but David had to be out of town, so he'll be here next week. The first one that we're going to be talking about tonight is what we're calling O-high rail modeling. And Dennis Brennan is the host for that. And Millhouse River Studios is our sponsor. So if we could run their video, Phil.
Millhouse River Studio builds model train working accessories that are made to last generations.
Millhouse River products are built out of aluminum and have scale brass details that even the most demanding scale modeler will appreciate. Since our industry entry in 2009 with the introduction of our flagship turntable, Millhouse River has continued to add new, innovative products, like our scale transfer table, rotary coal dumper, flood coaling tower and, most recently, a working conveyor that transports coal from the dumper to the loader. All of Millhouse River Studio's stunningly realistic products are currently available in O scale. We are adding new scales on some products, including the upcoming release of an HO scale turntable featuring our aluminum construction and stunning brass details that is big enough to handle a big boy locomotive. When it comes to your layout, don't settle for less, get Millhouse River Studio.
And so now let me introduce Dennis Brennan, who is the host for this segment of our show for O High Rail Modeling.
Hi, guys. Glad to be here. And we will get started right away. We're going to talk about how I kit bashed a Plasticville suburban station. So let me share the screen here. Right. All right, here we go. This, I'm sure a lot of you recognize it from when you were kids. Simple 4-wall snap together Plasticville kit. Everybody hear me all right?
You're not sharing yet.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
There you go.
Sorry. Everybody recognizes this building, I'm sure. If you were a kid and you had Lionel trains, you probably had one of these Plasticville stations. They've been around forever. And I thought, years ago, I wrote an article for Classic Toy Trains, and I thought I'd just try to simply paint a Plasticville kit and see what would happen. Well, one thing led to another, and I ended up with this model. Doesn't look anything like where it started out. And so one of the first things that I thought about was paint. But when I went to paint it, I was thinking about painting it. I looked at the stucco on the original wall. We go back here. It was pretty pronounced for my taste. So what I did was I used some sheetrock all-purpose joint compound, and I just smeared a little bit along this stucco with my finger. I think I wet it and I smeared it and I let it dry real well. And then this is what you end up with over here. And it still looks like, kind of looks like stucco. It's not perfect. It wasn't supposed to be. And so then I turned my attention to the dock. And I was originally going to start scraping the dock, the plastic, to do wood grain. And then I thought, wait a minute, why don't I just cover the dock with wood? Use it as a base for the wood. And that one decision is what really changed a lot of things, because once I did that, then it changed the whole look of everything, and I knew I was onto something. And so I was just making it up as I went along. And I used, let's see, what did I use? I used scale lumber for the deck. And the deck was, what did I use on that? I think I just used 1/16 by 1/4 strip board for the deck boards and scale 1/8 for the horizontal boards. And I just dyed those with walnut, Minwax American walnut water-based stain. And I wiped them with a rag. And did it randomly. And that's all there was to that. So then I turned my attention to the windows. So originally I painted the windows, but I looked at those windows and I said, that's ugly. That's not going to work. So I ended up using Grant line windows. And it was a double hung window. But the problem with the window is that you don't have frames on a stucco wall. See, there wouldn't be a frame. So what I did is I inserted the window from the back side, and since it was a regular window, I turned it upside down so that the sash would be in the right position, because you're going to raise it up from the bottom, so it had to be backwards. So I just turned it around, and the only other thing I had to do was, so I had to cut out the window, and that was easy enough to do. And just used the back edge of an X-Acto blade and traced around the window to get a groove, and then I just kept scraping away. It was easy enough to do. You could then turn the blade over and start cutting through it, but I found that just scraping away with the back of the blade until it gets really thin, and then you can just cut it and smooth it out. And then I had to also where is it? Where did I go? Here we go. I had to change the doors. And the doors, there was 2 double doors like this. This was a double, they used this as a freight door. And I looked at that, they were put together, and I thought, why don't I just cut those in half and cut out these panes? And I came up with these doors, more like the kind of an office door. And then I took the 2 doors, the single doors that they had for, pedestrians, and I combined them and I made a freight door out of it. And so that worked out really well. And so then it's joining the sides together. Now, with any kit, I don't care whether it's a Plasticville or not, one of the things that you should do is make sure that the sides are going to fit well. And I just cut off those nubs, and I sanded them, and I just made sure I had a really nice tight fit.
Well,
And then I braced it. So
hello.
let's see what else. Okay, and then I modified the station had 2 ramps, and I cut one of them off and made it so that a truck could back up into here. So one, you have a ramp on the other side that you can actually wheel a hand truck up or wheel anything onto the platform. And then I just use this as a truck dock with a bumper. Very simple. And then the roof was the other issue. I thought about cutting down the original roof, but that roof, it just didn't work for me. And I thought, what can I do? So I went into my kit stash and I found a Corber shanty, and it had a roof, and that's it right there. It had a roof for the shanty, and I thought that, that looks real close. And I put it on top of the building, and bam, it worked. It worked like a champ. I made the chimney out of some styrene. And then I wanted to give another look for the dock, give it a little more character. So I eliminated a couple boards, and I used some little screen here because apparently the boards got lost or kicked in or whatever. And so they just tacked up some screen on there. I guess to keep varmints out, I don't know, but it's there. And so there you have it. A Plasticville. Oh, the other thing is I added drain pipes to the guttering here. And that was just, I think I used 16 gauge wire for that. and eye pens that I drilled little holes and put them in there and painted them green, and there you go. And I glazed the windows with evergreen clear styrene. And so that's how you can take a kit like this and turn it into something like this. And I'd put that up against any kit. With that said, I will turn it back to Jim, or also we will see if we have any questions. Glad to answer them. No questions?
One thing, Dennis, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I've been modeling for a long time, and I go through number 11 X-Acto blades all the time.
Yeah.
I have never thought about turning it over and making the groove like you just showed. And that is a great idea and really a simple way of dealing with the problem.
Well, thank you. I discovered that because I was having, you know what it is when you try to cut something with that blade, it can wander. That first cut can go all over the place. Yeah. So I thought, what if I make a groove first? Perfect. And especially if you're going to saw something, you get a groove going, and you just keep going. And once you get the groove going, now you've got a place where you can start sawing. And I use those little tiny saws, that work in an X-Acto blade. Works perfectly for this.
I love it. I think it's a great idea. Thank you so much for doing this tonight. And we'll see you a little bit later in the show to talk about something else. But thanks so much for doing this.
Jim, could I ask
Sure.
Dennis a question?
Please.
So Dennis, I followed your work for a while, and I like it a lot. It's very nice.
Thank you.
The question I've got, not as a modeler, but as a manufacturer, and I'm gonna do a little plug for you. I just received this. So as a manufacturer, are you finding an increase interest in modeling, not just the ready to run type stuff? Are you going up against a brick wall trying to get people to model? What are you finding as a manufacturer?
Well, I think I'm satisfied with the way my kits are selling, but you bring up a good point. There's so many kits out there now that are built up kits, and people just plop them down on the layout. And but I'm trying to offer a kit and get people back into modeling, because it's a great part of the hobby. And if you don't do that, you're really missing something. I can't stress that enough. So to that end, I try to make my instructions bulletproof. My instructions, I think, and that's the key. If you can get people to buy one of your kits and you have really good instructions, I tell every manufacturer this: spend your money on instructions. I don't care what it costs you. I'm a photographer, so I do my own photography. I'm also a writer, so I do my own writing, and I'm an artist. I lay it out. It's like a little manual when you get it from me, and I assume you've not done anything. And so not only do I tell you what walls, how to put it together, I give you a sequence, and I tell you what tools to use and what I've done to make it easy. And if there's a problem doing something, I let you know that too. And if I make a mistake in building the kit, I tell you I did that, so don't do this. So I think that really helps. I don't know if I actually answered your question, but that really helps. And yes, kits aren't going like they used to because we're competing with the internet. We're competing with video games. We're competing with, YouTube. So I think I have a really good core group of modelers, maybe like yourself.
Understood. Okay.
So-
Well, I was just curious from like not from a modeler's perspective, but from a manufacturer's perspective, and I think you answered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank
sorry, I
you.
didn't mean to get long-winded there, but
No, I like to see your enthusiasm. It's clear you're passionate about it, and I think all of us here are the same way. We just need 10,000 more people.
well,
of
yeah,
us,
I mean,
so.
we can always use more people, and I think the only thing we can do really is to make the kits the best that we can make them at a reasonable price point. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much.
This is Jeff Jordan. In that vein, I just wanted to mention that this weekend I got to the big train show in Timonium, and they had a new development, which I really hope they stick with. They set aside an area which they called the Craftsman's Corner, put up a big banner, and there was at least 6 or 7 dealers in that corner with nothing but craftsman quality kits. You know, in the past, you wandered this huge show looking around, hoping to find a craftsman kit someplace. And now there were 6 or 7 dealers gathered in one spot with an amazing selection of current and out of production craftsman's kits. I could have blown my entire show budget in that one corner. I really hope that they continue it.
Okay, moving right along here. Thank you, Dennis.
Hey,
Appreciate
Jeff,
it.
I'm a member of the
Can't hear you, Chris.
Jeff, I'm a member of the Craftsman Courtyard. We do that just about when we can. Oh, there we go. I think. I'm a member of the Craftsman Courtyard, and yeah, there's about 6 of us that all get together when we can, and we have the courtyard at Timonium, and we also have one at Springfield.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it. Maybe it's been a couple of years since I had been to Timonium and hadn't seen it before, but I was really thrilled by the development. Like I said, I could have dropped a lot of money there.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back in April, so save up your pennies.
Looking forward to it.
Chris, you may want you or some of the guys to come on the show and talk about it so that people can start looking for it at the show.
Yeah, we can do that. I'll probably just put together a slide and talk about it myself, because I know everybody's scattered to the 4 winds for the most part. So
that's fine.
And there is a Facebook group as well for the craftsmen.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's actually 2.
All right, so moving along here, because otherwise we're going to really be late tonight. The next modeler up is Alfonso Moreno with his SpaceX module that he started building for us last week. So Alfonso, thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to tonight.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me again, and good evening, everybody. So yes, this is my 3rd presentation, and today we'll be actually completing just a capsule. This is the model. This is just a capsule, because next week we will complete the entire model by adding the trunk that will be placed under here. So today I will cover a new element, the docking mechanism, the nose cone, which is unique. It has a hinge and it closes. And we will talk about these covers. There are 4 covers on the exterior. So let me share now my screen. This time it's not a video, but it's going to be a slide presentation. Let me share my screen. And we are starting. Okay. Let me pull my PowerPoint. All right, so everybody see it?
Yes.
All right. So part 3, capsule completion. This is where we left off last week. And so the model at that time showed this connecting tabs that now we're going to make use of it so we can add the floor for the docking mechanism in this area. It's at this point where the modeler can decide whether to just add the nose cone on top and deal with the entire capsule. If not, these triangular tabs can serve as a connecting structure for the floor that we're going to put. So this is, if whoever has been following my presentations and whoever has downloaded the PDF file from my website, they can follow along by looking at the PDF and all the parts that I'm showing here, so you will understand what to do with these parts. This section is actually going to be glued in the back of the capsule, matching the seam line here. This is how it will look from the back. This is how it looks from the front. And just have to let it dry, and that's the trick. We are using just regular water-based glue, so it takes time, and it's very important to have every section dried in order to move along with the next step. So I'm going to make a close up. So this is going to be curved, and it's going to be glued along with these triangular tabs. This is one side. This is the other side. Once it's totally glued, then we'll do our next. This is how it looks from the back as well, from the front. Okay. Now we're going to add the docking mechanism. The main part of the docking mechanism is this part here. And it's very important, and on my previous presentation, I explained techniques and the proper tools to use. So for this part, you really have to score this section. These tabs have to be folded neatly. Also, we're going to curve this section, and it will actually embrace this round floor. As our next photo shows, here's the complete thing here. There's the floor, and this is like a wall. That this part will go under this top. All right. Here it is. The entire piece. It's the bottom portion of the docking mechanism glued to this disc. And this is how it looks from underneath. There are two other parts that will go on top. It's a ring, and let me see. I'm trying to annotate here. This ring here, and this section will go on top of this. Here it is, the entire piece all together. You have to let it dry. There are these this model. In order to put it together, I have photos on my website as well of the entire model, so you can relate to certain details and how to orient the entire piece when you're going to be gluing it to the model. This is the pedals, the connecting pedals that are going to be on top. it consists of a ring. And if you can see these little tabs, there are 3. That is where you will connect what is called the pedal. That there in the real vehicle, these will attach to similar ones that are on the International Space Station docking port. So now we have the 2 elements. Once dried, this piece will go and glue inside here, applying glue all over the inside. And here it is, the entire docking mechanism. This is how from the top view, from the side, you could see the details, how it's coming along. So now, once this area is being dried, now we can easily start folding these tabs all the way to the inside, and it will become like a floor. We don't see them here on this picture. Let's move to the other one. Now these tabs are actually becoming like a floor that will allow the docking mechanism to be glued on top. Here it is. We're getting ready and orienting ourselves. These 4 black dots, the 2 on the sides will need to match each side of the capsule. When you see the numbers on the side, this is the front. This is the front area. This is the side. And here it is. It's all glued. Patience. You have to have a lot of patience while you are assembling. With your fingers, then you really have to do your best in trying to not leave any gaps. Here was a minimal gap here, but nobody is perfect. You really have to try gluing the entire floor, circular floor, with the edge of the top of the capsule. Here it is, how it looks when we have completed the top of the capsule by putting the docking mechanism. On the sides, the model is detailed, even showing even the navigational lights, green and red. This is based on photographs. All right. On the sides, you could see markings all over where we're going to be putting our next, the next elements. These are going to be covered. There are going to be 4 covers. The numbers are there. That in the real vehicle, there are rockets. There are some rockets inside this area. And those will allow the capsule to go to safety just in case there's an emergency during launch. And it's a modern way to have an escape system compared to the old days where the escape system was on the very, very, very top of the rocket. On this one, it's inside the capsule. So let's continue. So we're gonna add what are called the Super Draco covers. I'm going to show how there are 4, and I will show how each one is being built. Using the proper tools is very important to score these markings here. You could see in this area now. Next, we're gonna start curving this top. And also being aware that these triangular tabs have to also be bent inwards. Why? Because this section will be glued on top of the connecting tabs. This is the underside of the piece, and you could see this area is being glued. All right. Now we're gonna add the second piece that will complete the entire Super Draco cover. And it's this element here. It has this flap that is actually going to be glued under this edge here in this area. And these kind of legs are going to go inside here in these flaps. So here I'm starting to position the two pieces where they're going to go. This section is going to be glued first. Here's the back. And now let it dry. Once we allow this piece to fully dry, then we're going to apply glue on this area and these areas. And with the help of a tweezer, we can start gluing them like so. Here's a tweezer. I'm pressing the two parts so it will look straight and complete. All right. This is another view. Once the whole thing is dry, then you can start molding it, putting these closing these walls together, so it will be more, instead of rounded shape, more straight. This is how it looks from the front, and the area that is very important to leave no gaps. So these markings that you see here is actually this mark. Let me see. These markings, they're plates that will move out of the way when the rockets inside will fire in case of an emergency. This is where the fire will go out from. So there are four. Each one, it will have their American US flags and the NASA logos. But on the tip of every one of these covers, there's a number. These numbers will match with similar numbers outside the capsule. So these flaps now, they have to be glued inside in the back. Let it dry. And now we are ready to locate the areas where these covers will be glued. We have the numbers here. No one is going to get lost. They know. And one by one, the area, obviously you will need to apply glue, very thin film of glue in the back. And these are the main areas where you really have to spend some time and letting the piece dry. This is an example of how neat it will look. It's another one. This is two views from the front. And look, if you are very patient and very careful, you could see that there are no gaps here. As you should. You have a clean model. More views. And this is a view from the top. So you could see the four Super Draco cases. And in relation to this piece, as I said before, the two circles have to be centered with a side line here with this square as well on the other side. So those were the Super Draco rockets that have the function to like an escape system. But there are other parts of the capsule are called the Draco thrusters. These are openings here that serve as navigation thrusters for pitch, yaw, and roll of the capsule while it's in transit in space. So I added these little 4 elements that are going to be glued on the same drawings outside the capsule to give a little more of detail. Adding the nose cone, we're going to complete this. The nose cone consists of actually rings. And here I have put all the rings, except for this one that it's already completed. This little circle has been glued to this one here.
Alfonso,
Notice that each, yes?
Alfonso, I hate to tell you this, but we're going to have to continue this next week.
Okay.
We're just running out of time here.
All right. I am going to finish actually. This is the sequence. Oh yeah, I'm about to finish. Now I'm going to go and show you how the capsule is put together. There is a disc that goes under. I'm going to finish now. And this piece here will connect to the actual capsule. I use crazy glue to make it very strong glued. Here it is. And he's here. And as you saw me holding the model, this piece is actually movable. It's not totally glued to it because you can still close it. And that's it. Next week, we're going to complete the model by adding the trunk. So sorry for extending, but pretty straightforward.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Alfonso, if you get a chance too, if you could put in the chat function where people can go to download a copy of this model, because we've been negligent, we haven't done that, and I think some people are asking me where they get it on your website. So if you could put in the chat function how to download your model.
No problem.
Thank you so much. See you next week.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now I want to go to Tom Farrell, who is starting a new portion of Scratch Building his layout for us tonight. Tom, welcome.
Thank you again for having me this evening. I have a new series. I'm calling it Completing Shantytown. Basically, it's to encourage me to finish this section of my layout and do it by the end of the month, roughly. So I'm diligently working on the actual shanties for the town. And this evening, we'll show you how I did this one on the left. And then next week, these 2 on the right, and there'll be a series of others. This evening, I'm also going to give a little overview of what exactly is a shanty town. And another name for them is Hoovervilles. So just bear with me here. There's only a few slides. The Great Depression basically ran from 1929 to 1941. And a lot of people say that World War II got us out of the Great Depression, but it was a very terrible time to live. Any of you that have, I don't know, parents or great uncles or great aunts tell you just how terrible it was. Many people lost their homes and during the Great Depression, and they moved into these towns they created called Hoovervilles, which was sarcastically named for Herbert Hoover, who was the president at the time. And you can just see these are, although terrible, they're a modeler's dream. And I've been making mine purely with scraps from my scrap bin. So not unlike the people that are making these, I'm using scraps as well. A lot of these shanty towns are right on riverbanks, so residents would have access to water. And they were constructed out of miscellaneous lumber that people could find, tar paper, tin, sometimes glass, but I mean, there's all kinds, there's even canvas here. Yeah, they're truly shanties. And this was a color photograph that I found that just gives you an idea of the scale of these shanty towns, these Hoovervilles. And from a modeling perspective, you know, I'm going to model a section of this, not prototypical, but I want to achieve this look in shanty town. And that's my my goal. My railroad is set in 1930, which is about the worst of the Great Depression. That was about the worst, as bad as it got. And I already have certain sections of the layout where I have a abundance of hobo camps. This is one, for example, maybe people recall this abandoned freight car. Theory in this little scene is that these hobos, these homeless people, basically stripped this railroad car down to build this shack here. So it's the same color wood, and those that are perceptive pick up on that. There's another area of my layout that shows a individual cooking a hot dog on a fire in a drum. He's living in this tent. And here's yet another area. So I'm trying to faithfully represent 1930. And of course, properties down by the railroad tracks aren't exactly prime properties. So that's why I'm featuring a lot of hobos, bums, these camps all over my layout. Which leads me to the scene Shantytown, which is still suffering from the pink foam syndrome, but I'm committed to finishing this scene by the end of the month here. So this is an area, to the left is my covered bridge, to the right is my John Allen engine house. This is right in the middle. I envisioned a 3-structure building here, and quite honestly, Santiago Pinada motivated me to do this scene. He doesn't know it. I thought sculpture here. And in my head, I have a vision of a little sculpture that could literally be picked up and put on a coffee table. That was the motivation for this anyway. So thank you, Santiago. Hope you like it. I took that template and I cut it out, put it on a piece of plywood. I built everything on plywood and cut the plywood out. And then this is early in the fit, but I wanted to have it fit flush against the backdrop. And then I was going to next add plywood to build the structure up. I want to have a wall because you have railroad tracks here. I didn't want the 3 houses, if you will, right up against the track. I wanted them elevated. So I came up with this deal to basically elevate the 3 buildings. You'll see as it develops. When I build things, I always build to square. It's a good practice to make everything parallel and perpendicular to one another. Makes things fit better. So I'm constantly using my square and cutting things to square. And as you'll see how this comes together. But this is the base of the first structure. And there's a plywood, basically floor. There's the construction. This is just plywood I got from Hobby Lobby. Comes in a little package. It's really inexpensive. And I did a test fit. I keep, through the whole process, I'll keep putting this module up against the backdrop in its place just to make sure it looks correct. And there's the other 2. And I wanted to change an elevation here, so to add visual interest to my quote-unquote sculpture. I just didn't want a series of flat planes and boxes. These are, you'll see, these are random pieces from my, I have various boxes, and this is a box called retaining walls. I will go back and add Sculptamold in here and blend in these various different pieces with Sculptamold and moss and weeds and dirt. And this will be one of the last things I do, but this, I had to build this up first. This will all match, it'll all work together. It'll all be blended in when I'm done. And there's the first structure going up. That's Monster Works laser etched brick, and that's a Grant Line door. And again, these are just scrap pieces. This is second building. This is, so I've sketched in the cutout for the door. When you do work with clapboard siding, and you want to put, I'm going to have a deck on here, for example, you can't just put the 2x8 or 2x12 across this clapboard siding. You have to cut it out. So the first thing I do is I go score this with a ruler and an X-Acto knife, and I make these little cuts, you know, just straight line cut, deep enough to just cut the clapboard out. Then I go back with this special blade that I've ground that, and I pry these little pieces out. And then I've cut this channel in here. Then I typically go back with a file and file it flush to the base material. And then when you lay that board in, this is the board for my eventual decking, it fits flush. Same is true with the outline of these doors, where I'm putting in this trim. I'll cut the clapboard out so that these trim pieces will fit flush. And there's the model coming along. Of course, like everything I do, there's no plans. There's just an idea in my head, and we just go for it. Kits be damned, right? Here's the third building coming along. And the whole key to this, what's going to make it really interesting to the eye, is the total variation of materials. We've got brick, we've got siding, we've got clapboard, we've got more siding, we've got stone, brick, concrete block, another type of brick, another type of stone, a wood retaining wall, another random cut stone, another dry stone. Everything looks different. So to the eye, it's all visually different. This one won't, this third building won't have a deck, but it does have a bump out. And that's pretty much the basic structure there. Now I began painting it, and I actually started with blue, yellow, and green. If you mix blue with yellow, you get green. This ensures that there's some continuity of colors here. This is just a brick red. These, I wanted a different color brick reds here, so they didn't all look like they came from the same paintbrush. These again are all base colors. This is just a base gray, dark gray, all base colors. Next up, I added alcohol washes, and I started with some pan pastels. You can see how that changes dramatically. See how light that, I didn't like the look of that. It looked too white. So I put a gray, blue alcohol wash on there. And then I went, when it dried, I hit it with a lacquer, and then I hit it with a black alcohol wash, and I achieved a big difference in the color there. This originally, this middle one, was that magic elixir made of vinegar and a dissolved steel wool pad. And then I went back and I colored it with yellow, or painted it with yellow paint. Then I did a test fit to see where we are. I started on the porch, the decking here. I'm coming up with some idea here. We'll get to that later. There's up close of the decking material. See how we use that footer board across? Then I had this revelation that I'd make it a condemned building on the spot. So I started boarding the windows up. And it led to this. This is more or less the finished, almost finished building number one. I went online and I found all these condemned signs. I brought them into PowerPoint, printed them out, and put them all over the building. I'm pretty proud of that roof. That's one of the nicest roofs I've ever done. Well, that looks like hell, doesn't it? I mean, it looks exactly what it's supposed to be. These I made myself. I printed these out of, I found some shingles. I colored them green. This is tar paper. This is just wood that it's just a very nice look, you know. And I put it up there to see how it's coming along. This will be the concept of, you know, the level of detail that I'll go to on this thing. It's going to be a real standout model. There's another up close with additional weathering. See the boards there. I went in with a black magic marker. I'm going to tone this down a little bit, but I looked at this left photograph and I thought, you know, it has so much detail on it, I should put the nails in. So I don't normally do that, but I put some nail holes in there. I'm going to go back with a dental tool and I'm going to poke these holes and put with a very fine brush, put some rust color on there. So I've got another evolution to do with this, but I just thought this model deserved nail holes. I don't always put them there. There's standing back where it's going to go. This was last week's model. There's that outhouse that you'll see next week. This whole section will be the shanty town. So that's what I've got for you this evening. Yeah. It's gonna be an exciting 4-part series. Yeah.
Fantastic. It really looks great. It really does. I think you're really capturing the feel. Anybody have any questions for Tom?
Thank you.
Tom,
Guys. Yep. Stick with it. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you next week. All right. Now we want to go back to Mr. Dennis Brennan. And this time Dennis is going to be talking to us about the diorama that he's building to show us some of his products, his ballast. This is what he started his company with. Before I do that, Phil Edhart has been kidding me ever since we started this show tonight, because long before anybody else was on, it was just Phil and I. And I opened my mouth and I said, Phil, take a look, see what you see. And he started laughing and giggling. So he sent me a note a few minutes ago and he said, people have seen it. I said, Jim, you got to say something about why you're missing your tooth. Well, I was eating about 30 minutes before the show. I had something to eat and I bit down on something that was hard as a brick. I didn't realize it at the time. And I just broke my tooth off. And, you know, it literally just fell out of my mouth on the floor. So that's, you know, hopefully tomorrow I can get to a dentist somehow and he'll, you know, figure out something to do. But that's what happened to my tooth. So there you go, Phil. You got it now. So Dennis, it's up to you to talk about your product and your ballast in your diorama.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. And gentlemen, we're going to continue where we left off. I'm going to briefly go through the stuff. So I'm even starting a timer, Jim, just so I don't go too long. All right, share screen. Here we go. All right, here's where we started last time. Very quickly, it's just construction foam. The track is going to go along here. The marks that you see on here are, I laid out the building. This is a diorama. It's going to feature my a siding track, and this is for the new kit that I'm coming out with, and that's going to be used for advertising purposes, and to show off the model. We'll just this is a street, these are sidewalks, this is the actual building. And so we went from there, and you can see how I drew this stuff out. And a little note, the foam is easily glued. I don't use construction adhesive. I use regular white glue. I spread it out with a brush. I pour some on there and I cover the whole surface with a brush, spread it out flat. Not just a little thing, I just cover everything and then stick it down. And once that's, and put some weight on it, some books. I have an old set of encyclopedias. Once that's done, it ain't coming up. All right, so then, real briefly, I had to change the elevation from the shear wall. So I just cut a couple pieces of foam and just slapped them in there. A little interest, I added the same kind of walls that that we saw before. And I purposely didn't make these perfectly vertical, because I figured they're trying to hold back. So they canted those walls a little bit as they were building them. And at least that's the story. That's my reasoning for doing that. And then this little piece here is my interpretation of, there's a hole up here, which you'll see later. This is going to be a concrete bunker that is a coal bin underneath this building that will be here. In times past, it needed coal delivery. Now it's been repurposed, so this isn't going to be used anymore, but I designed that little thing. And then masking tape. I use masking tape all the time to do stuff like this. I just shove paper in there to basic shape. And I could have used foam, but I wanted to do this and give it a little more just to show what you could do. And then I used some real rocks here, which I then filled everything in with, here's the tape. I also use this little wall here. These are HO, by the way. And, you know, they work fine for our scale. If anybody starts coming up, measuring rocks and measuring the actual boards, you know, then they're missing the whole thing. Anyway, you can see, you just do a few layers of tape until you get it where you want it, and you can push it and shove it and move it. And I'll tell you what, once it's down and you paint it, I use brown latex paint over everything. It's always the base coat. You can see the paper here. This was just some shipping paper I had, and I shoved it in there. And I'm going to put Sculptamold over that, or Celluclate. Here's what I made that little concrete thing out of. It's just foam core. And as long as you coat the foam itself with white glue, which is what I do, I coat it with white glue, let that set, then you can spray it with spray paint, and you're not going to eat the foam away. A little trick that I came up with. And this is a great concrete looking paint. It's a Rust-Oleum multicolored, finely textured paint. It's not that big texture that they used to sell. This is really finely textured. And what I like is not the texture as much as I really like the idea that it's variegated in color, and that really adds to the concrete look. And what you see here is the frame for the building. I had these little blocks. Rather than put the building on a solid base, I left it open, and I can just slip it on over this. It also puts the building at the same height as the sidewalks, which is what I wanted. And what you see here are little pieces of plastic brick that I glued down there. This will all get covered with Durham's water putty, skim coated. And I will maybe cover some of these up completely. I just wanted to have enough here so that I can mess around with it when I get to this point. The idea being that this is an older building, this is an old area of town, and there was originally cobblestone along here. All right. And so you can see this little bunker I built. I even cut it out here and put this around. And another trick that I do now, this is all leading up to ballasting. I know it's taken a while to get there, but you can't just start ballasting. You got to think about what the scenery is going to be. So I always try to do a little bit of scenery alongside the track. Now, do you do it before you ballast or do you do it after you ballast? Yes. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter. In this case, I wanted to get an idea, and because it's a hillside, I decided to do a little bit of scenery work first. Now you can see the Sculptamold over here. I covered it up over here, and this is how I got this to slope in. Okay, here's more of the Sculptamold, and you can see I just work with it. I like it a lot. It's real easy to work with. And I add a little brown paint to the mixture, and then I coat it again. You can see it was lighter colored in its raw state after I mixed it up with paint. And then I coated it again with my brown latex paint, which becomes the basic dirt color. You can always let some of that show through. Okay, here's a little bit closer look of what's going on here. And you'll see now the track. What I did is, you saw that cork, that's N-scale cork. And I use N-scale cork alongside the track. Why? Because our track is too high. The ties are twice as high as they should be. N-scale cork placed outside the track does two things. It cuts down the height of the tie. It helps the ballast stay in place. Plus, it gives you a nice little ballast form to follow. Makes it a lot easier. And now here we go. This is what I ended up doing. This part looks a little bit odd right now because it's still wet. It was wet when I took the photograph. I just did this today. And this is darker because it's still a little bit wet. This is a combination of my yard ballast, which is very dark, and my Superior Sand coarse and fine. Let's see, we'll just go here. This will give you another little shot of it. I use on sidings, lots of times they just use whatever on sidings. It's not going to be mainline ballast, although some might do that. But this was just this kind of dark ballast, and I add the Superior Sand is all these other little colors here. The yard ballast is real dark. It's all this dark stuff here. But the Superior Sand is dark, but it's got all these little shades of other rocks in it, and it really makes it pop. And you see, I went along here. I didn't do any kind of scenery work here. I wanted to show you how I was doing this. And of course, on a hillside, this is going to slope down, and ballast is going to run down and go along here and here. And here you get a much closer look of the yard ballast and the Superior Sand, and you can see it really creates a nice natural looking texture. And I've got the fine Superior Sand is along here. It's really fine. The regular Superior Sand is about the same size, or the coarse Superior Sand is about the same size as my yard ballast, which this is right here, that dark stuff. But you can see how that really pops everything, and it looks pretty natural. And here is how it's just going to run down like this. Now, of course, this is not finished. This is just the base covering, if you will. I will be adding bushes and weeds and whatnot to this. And so that basically takes care of it. Let me see, we started here and we're ending up with something like this. And I think the next time we'll have some scenery along here. And I don't know whether I'll get to the street or not, but I might. Anyway, I've got about 4 minutes left. I tried to keep this brief, so I will end this now. If somebody has questions or you want to talk about something, we've got 3 minutes if Jim gives me the time. All right.
Oh, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, well, does anybody have any questions? Anything? Comments? Criticisms? I'm open.
Dennis, I think you may have covered it for this evening. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, thanks for tuning in.
Have you ever tried using the back of your X-Acto knife? What I've done is I use a divider to cut out circles out of styrene. A good sharp divider will do the same thing as the back of your X-Acto knife.
That's a good idea.
So if you're looking for arches for like arched windows and things like that, a divider will do that job nicely, but it takes a while.
Well, any of this stuff, really, you can't be in a hurry. I mean, you have to have patience. Scenery is kind of an organic process for me. So I just, I'm making it up as I go along, like I think a lot of us. So anyway, I love doing this. And I'm having a lot of fun. And I hope that I'm adding to your enjoyment. And I hope that maybe this inspires you to get off your duff. If you're just sitting around being an armchair modeler, go ahead and do something. There isn't anything that's wrong. You can't do anything wrong. Mistakes, just start over or use the mistake to go into a different direction. I make mistakes all the time, and I look at it as an opportunity rather than a problem. So that's my spiel, and I'll turn it back to you, Jim.
Thanks so much, Dennis. Look forward to seeing you next week. You take care and be safe on your trip going to Florida.
All right. Thank you, guys. And we'll see you next week. And you guys be safe and have a happy weekend. And we're going to go Chiefs this weekend.
Thanks, Dennis.
You're welcome.
So now I want to turn to Santiago Pinada to talk about art again. Santiago, I really do appreciate what you're doing, and please join us again sometime down the road when you've got something else that you'd like to share with us, because I think you're bringing an awful lot of great information to modelers who normally don't think of what they're doing as having anything to do with art, and I believe it does. So thanks so much, Santiago.
I'd like that, Jim. Thank you for the invite. It's good to be back.
Okay.
Tonight, I'd like to speak about the problem of scale models from the scientific perspective. In other words, if you're a scientist, or if you put a scientist hat, what would a scale model look like? And I think that even though the ideas I'm about to present are not criterions to assess our beloved scale models, they can inform us in very interesting ways about the latent depth and interest that these models could convey. But let's start with this question, which shows up as a comment quite often in our community. The idea that scale models are real, or that we want them to be as real as possible. If you're looking at a model from the scientific perspective, there is a reality to the models which is being investigated, but they're not real in the sense that you could present the phenomenon or the prototype exactly as if you would see it in a different scale. So I often think we say things without thinking about the consequences of our questions. And I think that the idea that our scale models should be as real as possible is something that we should, in a way, be careful what we wish for. Because a scale model that is as real as the prototype, if you take it to the theoretical end, is going to be something very undesirable. And I think at the end of the presentation, I'd like people to get away with the idea, or take away the idea that our scale models, we're fine calling them scale models, but they're more fictions than scale models if you're looking at them from the scientific perspective. That doesn't take away anything from anything of the importance or the beauty or the sophistication of our models, but on looking at them, like I said, with the scientific or through the scientific lens, is a very different deal. We're looking at a mathematical expression, and this mathematical expression is in some ways the ultimate scale model. How is that so? I think I'll like to cover maybe at the end of the talk. But let's keep the idea of a mathematical expression as a way of looking at a phenomenon and its scale model. Let's look at a very vividly accessible example. You find a puddle of water, on the street. Is that puddle of water that you find on the street in any way comparable to, say, a large body of water such as a lake? Or if you're feeling a little liberal, you can say, well, if you look at it from this perspective, or if you think about yourself in a different size, something like that. But I think the obvious answer, and I think everyone recognizes this as an obvious answer, is that the small puddle on the street has almost nothing to do as a model of a great body of water such as a Grand Lake. The temperature is not the same. They reflect light completely different. The weight of the water is in no way analogous. And the point is that we have two phenomenons, and their behavior is entirely different. Interesting idea, for instance, is that water doesn't scale. There's no such thing as scale water. We simply cannot come up with something like that because we don't have that much control of the material world as we'd like to think. Which was an idea that I hinted at in a previous talk when I said that self-propelled boats never look right, and that's because the water they're on is non-scalable. So that's a big constraint in that hobby. Something to keep in mind. When you're looking at something as a scale model from the scientific perspective, you are looking at a phenomenon that you want to investigate. This could be, for instance, the behavior of a fluid or the behavior of an object through space. Whatever it is, you're trying to investigate a phenomenon. And scale modeling in the sciences is a methodology. That methodology allows you to approach, access, manipulate, understand such phenomenon. And there is a protocol and a literature and attached concepts to that approach. Now, technically speaking, that's a protocol and a process that started in the 19th century. But the tentacles go all the way back to even, let's say, classical antiquity. In the picture that I'm showing right now, we see a model, a Peruvian, an Inca carved monolith that is located in Peru. There's several of models of a city and you see several of these. This is a model of a city in which the citizens were trying to find the best way to irrigate water through the town or through their small city. And so they use different materials like mercury and things that would in some way imitate water in a different scale. So they use something that its fluidity would be different and things like that. But the interesting thing is that the impulse to investigate a phenomenon scientifically and applying all these little tweaks so that we can understand it has been there all along. It's just been characterized and formalized through science in a much more defined way, I would say. Look, what you're doing when you're doing scale modeling, and this applies to our hobby too, is that scale modeling is an exercise in comparison. That applies to whatever dimension or phenomenon you're investigating. And if you take that idea a little bit farther, that means that scale modeling is by nature an exercise in measuring. That's what we're doing when we're doing scale models, when we're making or building or approaching something through scale modeling. We are measuring because we're comparing. Now, you could say, well, clearly, we're always measuring in our hobby. And if you've tried to scratch build anything, you know that you measure 3 or 4 times before you actually make a cut or build a part. Measuring is simply at the core of what we do. Interestingly enough, if you actually think about how we measure, that's a whole conundrum. That's a rabbit hole that takes you all the way to the philosophy of science and mathematics, where you can say, well, do we really measure with a ruler? Not really. The ruler is an instrument that's embedded in a larger system, which allows us to measure things and be confident that those measures are in some way true. Think, for instance, about the history of the meter, the 1 meter unit that we have. It's a very interesting history, and you can take that rabbit hole all the way down. So in some ways, scale modeling, as we understand it, that scale modeling from the sciences overlaps. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of points where we actually move away from understanding a model or a phenomenon and move more towards like a scientific, a historical representation, which is what we actually do. That's our ultimate goal. Let me move on. Look, our models are remarkably sophisticated geometrically, but they actually have or carry lots of constraints. And the constraints that they have to do with the fact that they have to work within certain situations, and they have to be operational and enjoyable in that experience. But let me go back to that idea later. If you're looking at an O-scale undercarriage of a PSC troop sleeper, and you can see that the model is no joke. I mean, every aspect has been considered. They're remarkable, no question. Going back to the idea of how is it that we measure. If you look at the sciences and the literature, there's something called dimensional analysis and physical similarity. Those are 2 sort of areas that allows us to actually measure things and allow for the methodology of scale modeling to be a reasonable and verifiable way of accounting for something. And within those areas, there's many, many concepts that are quite interesting and complex to the degree that they are to us, not so much for physics and mathematicians, because this is sort of basic science for them. But those ideas are very interesting. The idea of geometric similarity is directly applicable to what we do. And if anything, our models are remarkable in that sense. The similarity of shape, and in our case, in appearance too, is absolutely sophisticated. They use it for other things like wind tunnels and things like that. You get the idea. And there are other concepts that, even though may seem applicable, they completely fall apart when you actually look at them as if they were in some way measurable to the actual prototype. Look, let me go back to this mathematical expression really quick. You have 2 systems. You have the prototype and you have the model. When I said that this was the ultimate scale model, that means that you have 2 systems that can move back and forth, and every dimension that you look at is exactly the same, or as we see in the expression, is 0. That means that the ultimate scale model is something like a prototype and a model in which every parameter, every dimension is exactly the same. So you have an isomorphic system, as they call it, an isomorphic system. In our case, that's an impossibility. And in a lot of scientific cases, it's also an impossibility because there's lots of constraints that we can simply not attend to. Imagine the idea that you could actually, like I said and going back to the title of my talk, which is unshrinkable. Imagine that you could actually shrink down a prototype to our scale. And I don't just mean bring it down in scale and have the Pitman motor inside. No, I mean shrink it down, where every component is actually a working component as if you would see it in the prototype. I actually think that's impossible. But I also think it would be obviously undesirable. Do you really think you could pick up a shrunken down prototype by the fuel tank and not ruin it in the process? Could you hold a beautiful E-unit by the trucks and not having them fall apart completely? Because like I was saying, every component would be isomorphic with the actual prototype that we are so interested in. So again, these are ideas that can inform to some degree, for instance, someone that is modeling a conveyor belt with coal and things like that. But the complexity is there, the interest is there, and I just wanted to maybe point out to anyone that may think of these ideas as interesting to go and check them out. In our models, and I'm about to finish in a couple of minutes, like I said, geometrically, they're beautiful. You find every single detail. This is a turret, what would you say, a turret cabinet or a compartment of I think NY, New York Central locomotive, and everything is there. You could actually study all the parts, name all the parts. Obviously, there's no water, steam, oil, anything of that sort going through these pipes. They are, of course, an illusion. They work, they're non-working, but they're there. So again, geometrically, wonderfully sophisticated. They're wonderful. But nothing in the model, in the scale model, works exactly as it works in the prototype. Drivers, for instance, are a case in point. They have nothing to do with the way drivers actually work in a real locomotive. They may look, they may give the illusion of working exactly, but again, the mechanism is completely tailored to the miniature. Again, a couple of key model imports, O-scale, E-units, and you can see how wonderfully sophisticated these models are. They really are what we call museum pieces. And I'd like to finish with that idea of the museum piece, because we tend to think of museum pieces as quote unquote works of art. But my position is that when we call our scale models museum pieces, we're actually talking about scale models that are so geometrically sophisticated and detailed that you can actually start a conversation not only with the scale model, but with history and the prototype. So they actually allow you to investigate the prototype in a way that everything is there, and it takes you back to the prototype. And there's a conversation, there's a dialogue between the object, the viewer, and the historical object. Look, we're looking at a rear truck of a key unit, and we have the, is it ATS? The ATS brake shoe in the middle, in the mid truck. That ATS shoe truck, component was only seen on Santa Fe engines, and steam and diesel engines. And key model imports actually modeled that in their O-scale renderings. That the ATS shoe is there allows you to ask the model, what is that? Why is it there? And of course, you can go back to the history and the books and the actual prototypes to investigate what is that thing and why is it there. In that degree, our scale models are not only wonderful, but they are actually pieces that allow themselves for investigation. But again, our models are full of constraints. That doesn't take away from their importance and their beauty. But in a way, their constraints are tailored as miniatures and not so much as scale models if you would see them from a scientific perspective. I hope you find this idea as interesting. Thank you for listening.
Santiago, thank you so very much. I mean, your concepts I find extremely interesting. I can't thank you enough for doing this, and I look forward to you coming back and talking about it some more on future shows. Thanks again so very much.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Well, now I want to turn to Martin Breckbiel, NMRA, for his Scratch Building Corner. Martin, welcome.
Evening, Jim. I'm not sure.
How's it going? You doing better?
Yeah.
You seem to be worse and worse every time I hear from you.
Well, you know, it's an advanced case of dry rot. You know. I needed a beverage.
Are your teeth falling out?
Not yet. Just my brain.
He gave it to me. That's why my tooth fell out, I'm sure.
I need an adult beverage to fortify myself after Santiago. How do I follow up after Key? Okay, well, whichever. We'll get this going now. Okay. Where were we? Let's see. Well, that's where we were last week. I hope it is, because that was the same slide I used last week, so it better be where we were last week. So we have a sort of a semi-gondola thing going on at one end with all these nut bolts and washers inside and outside, and a cradle for our brass tank. And, well, there's the brass tank car, or the brass tank. It drops right in there, and you can see, I'll back up where it's relieved on the ends. That cradles those curved ends of that tank. So it does sit in there fairly rigidly, but I mean, if you flip it over, it's going to fall off. So we can't have that happening. That would be, I think the technical term is bad. So we'll fast forward a few slides. So I went and painted all the wood parts. I've forgotten what that is. It's something that purports to be Southern Freight Car Brown, I think, which is actually a red. And the gray is a Canadian National gray. For some reason, I've kind of fallen in interest with Canadian National gray. I just found another bottle of Tom's favorite Flow Quill paint of Canadian National gray. So, you know, it's nothing like the smell of Flow Quill in the morning to get your day going right. So we've added a few things here to the tank. We've got a little piece of plumbing out the back end here with a valve. Wiseman Models sells some really nice brass castings from the back shop line, the old back shop line. And I like to use these whenever I can. So you can actually drill them out and run your piece of tubing through it or up to it and out the other side. Do a little curved action, solder that all together and into the end. And this end, we have a little vent at this end. We'll come back to that later. And we've added two bands here that hold the tank in place. Tank's not glued in place. It's not glued or screwed or whatever. These two bands are actually functional. This one's down a little low. I probably adjusted that later. I hope I did. But that's just some Detail Associates 15 by 60 thousandths brass and 28 thousandths or 32 thousandths brass wire. You solder it together, wrap it around it, stick it through the holes, a little bit of glue, a little bit of goo, a little CA, a little patience, and tank is secure. Just as easy as that. But I did it this way so I could paint the tank separately from the body. Well, we'll fast forward a lot further. A few more odds and ends. We need a little platform up here. Here's the US Hobbies ladder. I put that together and bent it around a little bit and added some, chopped it up a little bit and bent it some more. A little platform on top, some barrels. These were Tishi's barrels in this particular car. The bucket is literally loosely, is hanging there loosely. It's not glued or anything. It's just hooked around over that valve. That's what keeps it from falling off. Got brake wheel and ratchet and pawl added at the end. There's probably a better picture from the other angle. Yeah, well, it's not that better. It's a little out of focus. Well, that's annoying. It looked better when I did it the other time. Well, let's go back to this view from above. We've got a toolbox, or whatever you want to call it, box, really painted an ugly color of coach green, and an extra resin passenger car seat I had, because I figured, well, you know, it's a maintenance away sort of car. Workers like to sit down a lot. If they're not leaning against something, they're going to be sitting down, so they need a place to sit. And of course, at this end, where that vent was, whoever's working at this car needs a place to hang his hat. So he's hung his hat on the end here on this, over this vent. Normally I would hang a raven off of this thing, or a crow or something, but I hung his hat off of it. A little bit of weathering, light, nothing's too sophisticated as yet. I'll come back to this someday, maybe, if I have time while I'm building more cars. I've already got 5 more on my workbench right now. And here's our final product. It isn't his hat, obviously. He's got one on his head already, but he is seated, so that's he's found a home in a nice comfy chair, and he's ready to deliver oil or grease or molasses, for all I know, to wherever it's going to go. And I think that's the last slide on this car. So I have to get to work tonight yet and get something built, because I may have to present something next week if Jim calls on me again.
Absolutely, you're going to be called on.
See, I'm in trouble already.
That's good looking, though. That
So,
really
yeah.
is.
You like that one?
Yeah, something different.
Well, maybe next week's will be different. I don't know. It all depends on whether the weather Friday and Saturday gets over 60 degrees. So I can go outside and paint. Otherwise, we're going to see an unpainted model at the end point, maybe. February is hard on painters. It's difficult to you can't paint in the house, you know, as Tom has related. The lovely smell of flow quilt wafting through the floorboards up the steps is not going to sit well with the better half. And even with my exhaust fans running, nothing's good enough. So outdoors I go, and if the weather isn't with me, well, things get stacked up in a different pile and wait for warm weather to arrive. So if anybody's got any questions, now's the time to scream them out.
Very nice looking model. Yeah,
it is. And don't forget, he does. Martin is the editor of our newsletter. So if you'd like to share some information in the newsletter, send it to Martin. He's the person that you need to send it to.
And thank
Martin,
you, Tom.
Martin, thanks so very much. We will see you next week.
Okay. I'll be here probably.
Fantastic. Well, now I want to talk to Steve Sherrill to find out what he wants to talk about. So what do you want to talk about, Steve? Is Steve not with us?
Steve, you got to unmute.
Yeah, Morton got me all upset. He was awake tonight. Most of the time he's not awake, but yeah, I'm going to talk about the Commodium Train Show and the setup that we had. Greg Cassidy and myself. I was there on Sunday. He was there doing all the work on Saturday. And it was a great time for me. And of course, all my pictures now I was all set up so good until, but anyway, the train show was on Saturday and Sunday. I understand it was the largest crowd they've had in quite a while on Saturday. And my experience on Sunday was the largest crowd that I've seen on a Sunday in many a day. I don't know. I kind of asked around why the crowd seemed to be so big this year. And the answer I really got was that because there are more and more hobby shops closing. And, I find that a little bit disturbing in as much as the old places we used to go to spend a Saturday afternoon or something are just not there anymore. We keep losing them and losing them. And it's very upsetting to someone who's been to a lot of hobby shops in a day. I wanted to show now, I don't know if you can see this very well. This is what the setup looked like. We had the banner. I had my little micro layout there on Sunday. It seems like the more things that we can put up to draw the attention with the banner, the more people we get to talk to. So some of the people I talked to, of course, the kids were there, and this little girl, I just couldn't resist her. She was so cute. She picked out, I had Minnie Mouse on my loading dock, and of course, the boy said Mickey, and she immediately corrected him, which was, what normally happens. I talked to a lot of grandfathers who brought their children. We gave out all of the new tracks modeling information pieces of paper that we had. We had none left. I gave stuff to anybody that I thought had contact with somebody who would be eligible for the scholarship. I gave the grandfathers, guys, and they said, well, we don't have a grandson. I said, you got a nephew, a niece, a next door neighbor, something like that. What I did find was, because we had an attraction, which was the micro layout, the banner caught a lot of attention because it's really a great banner. And people will look up, it sits high on the table. And when they look up and then come to bring their eyes down, you know that you've got their attention. And it's a great time to approach them, with such things as, hey, have you ever heard of new tracks modeling? And then they go in, well, what is it? You say, hey, it's a YouTube. It's on YouTube, and we have a Zoom. It's about modeling different scales, and they always want to know, does it have different scales? And I always say, yes, we cover all the scales. So they're always interested in that. It was a real good experience. I talked to a lot of people who are just starting out in model railroading, and they don't even know what scale they're getting in. And they were, looking for some recommendations, and they were asking how many, how much do you think it's going to cost to get into, to start model railroading. And, so I made a couple of recommendations, one being NMRA. You have your divisions, go and see what other people's layouts look like. Pick a scale, this type of thing. But they were people just coming in. A lot of men and women, wives together, husbands and wives together. I was kind of amazed at that. I hadn't seen that in a long time. But I know Craig was the same as, we need more volunteers on these tables to help us out. We can't have a break. We can't go to the bathroom. We have to leave the table alone like that. I was a little reluctant to do it when I had my module there because I had some equipment. If you never know what's going to happen. Somebody pick up a small engine or car and take it away. So I just think that if we could get more people to volunteer and relieve, for a half hour, an hour, so we can go enjoy the show too a little bit. I know we had a lot of people who were at Timonium who do new tracks, and they could stop by the table and take over for an hour. They don't have to commit for the whole day. And it doesn't even have to be at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, whatever time they have available. It's very important that we get the word out on new tracks and to share our ideas as far as modeling goes. I know that little micro layout, once I got explaining, about it, they always ask, well, how'd you make this? How'd you do that? And that's a great opportunity to share some of the knowledge that we gain by watching new tracks and share our modeling techniques. So I just think that the table is great. We do great. We're giving we're allowed this opportunity freely. It doesn't cost us anything. And to take full advantage of it, we need to be there and share. We need to have things on the table, models, and this type of thing. I am doing something. Let me get back here to my one thing. Now, if a micro layout gets some attention, I am going to do something in G scale that is really, really inexpensive. You've seen these Christmas trains that you buy for $29.95 from Walmart. Well, I'm going to do a layout on that 8-foot table, a little switching layout. I've already started, and I've got, here's an engine. These are battery powered, literally battery powered, but I'm going to put my own RC battery in it. And I've got a couple other things. Here, these little sets you can buy for $10 to $15 now. And so here's a box car that I did, weathered up, and that's all ready to go. And for $10 or $15, you can buy an engine and 3 or 4 cars and some plastic track. So I'm going to start showing the basics, the very basic stuff. Okay, here's another thing that I did. These have all been done since the show, by the way. So just with a little Krylon paint, sprayed on, take them all apart, paint them. You're ready to show somebody how easy it is to get into model railroading and enjoy it. So I think, Craig, you had some pictures too, didn't you? I don't know if you can show them if you have that ability.
I do, and I actually have something lined up. If you guys don't mind me sharing real quick, this will be short. The show opens at 9 o'clock on Saturday, and by about 10 o'clock, I heard people talking about there's still a line outside. So at 10:30, our table being very near the front door, I went up to the front door, and this is what I saw. The show has been open for an hour and a half. So that was the line an hour and a half after the show opened. And that's the longest that I've ever seen a line lasting at Timonium. Saturday was one of the busiest days they've had in years. And that's going back to pre-COVID days. And I can't count how many families came by the table. There were families coming in that had just seen it was a train show, and they weren't model railroaders, but they wanted to see if there were some trains that they could show to their kids. I had 9 or 10 families stopped by that had children in high school. Some of them were seniors, some of them were a year or two away, but all of them were happy to take applications and flyers for the applications. And most of the older gentlemen that I could get to stop by the table, they're not as easy to sell the applications to because their children are too old and their grandchildren are usually too young. But that's where the flyers about new tracks would go to. I'd say, well, take a look at this show. If you can use a computer, you can watch new tracks, whether you watch it live or whether you go to the YouTube channel. And a lot of them were excited about the YouTube channel. They said, oh yeah, I can do YouTube. I watch modeling videos there. So I think there was more interest generated from this show than I've seen in the 2 years I've been doing new tracks at Timonium.
Well, that's good to know, and I'm happy that that's happening, and I know that Scott will be too. You know, we couldn't do this without people like Scott Gear. You know, he donates the space for us. He helps us every way possible. He's donated to the scholarship fund. Without people like that in this hobby, we couldn't hope to achieve what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, let me see if I can find. There was another picture that I had taken. Here we go. If I can pull this one up on my share. So this was Sunday morning. I was handing the table off to Steve. On Saturday, I worked it. On Sundays, the club that I'm in, we also offer scholarships, and our table was over in the South Hall. So I went over to work our scholarship table on Sunday. And Steve's right. That little layout he has is a big draw for people to come by. I'll have to think of bringing something on the table other than just the flyers to bring more interest to the table when I'm up there the next show. And you're right about Scott Gear. I went up and thanked him Saturday morning before the show opened, because what people may not know, he offers the scholarship table for free. He doesn't charge. A table like that could cost you $60 to $70 ordinarily, and he has always offered it for free because he sees the benefit it brings to the hobby.
And you know, it's Amherst does the same thing for us, and the Harrisburg shows do the same thing. A lot of the shows around the country, if you'll just ask them, they understand the need. They understand what we're trying to accomplish. It's just, you know, we're the first people that have done it, and it's they're learning as we're learning about what we need to do and how we need to do it. Just like Bob is producing the tabletop signs for now. Last year we didn't have those. We didn't even think about having them. It's a learning experience.
And it's a little fun too. Probably anybody who stopped by the table may not have noticed, but last year before we started out, I went out to a party store looking for some type of plastic tablecloth. You'd need to have a tablecloth on the table. Mm-hmm. And I found some that had little scholarships and or little graduation hats and college stuff on it. And I thought that would be just perfect. So I don't know how many people who actually stop there notice it, but it's actually a graduation tablecloth.
That's great. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, it's just it's a little extra that, you know, kind of decorates the table.
That's fantastic.
It's better than just a plain blue one or something.
Anybody
yeah, you can see it there with the graduation caps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a young man here who was in a wheelchair, and I called him over to show him what we could do for someone who had, you know, a situation where they couldn't stand up. And this is on the Lazy Susan. And so he pulled his wheelchair up, which was a perfect height for the table. And other people started noticing what was going on. And so we caught some attention. And he had no idea that this was a possibility for him. Okay. And you could see the smile on his face. He really enjoyed the opportunity, you know, to experience something like this that was completely unknown to him. But you know, and so this is just one of the things that, you know, you can do. I mean, there's no person that I couldn't approach that couldn't have gotten something out of this little teeny micro layout. That's only 16 inches by 23. So it was a great experience for me. I enjoy it. And like I say, the banner, once the people looked at the banner, I knew I had a few minutes that I could share and try to, influence them to view New Tracks modeling. So, I just want more people to volunteer for an hour to just relieve, I mean, Craig has said the same thing. We just need to, give us a little time at the show too. So that's it for tonight. It was a great experience, and I'm going to do something else in April that'll try to catch them again.
Fantastic. Anybody have any questions for Steve or Greg? Well, I hope you will consider volunteering to help a little bit. I think you'll get an awful lot out of it. I don't think that it's all give on your side, because I think there's an awful lot of opportunity to get something back from the people you'll meet. So thanks, guys. I really do appreciate it, and we will see you next time.
Okay.
Well, that's our show for tonight, Phil. So if you could show the caboose for us.
Ekstrimnya tikungan tajam ini.
I'm sure that Al Judy or Tom Farrell will have that on their layout by next week. Thanks so much for being here this evening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. That's what it's all about. That's why we do it. Well, I'm going to try to go to bed early tonight so I can get up nice and fresh before my dentist appointment sometime tomorrow, I hope. But I'll see you next